when you read Wordsworth, or even for other poems, at least, these poems which are at least abstract poems, at least visualize, okay? So when you read the poem, you have to visualize yourself that you are in such a place, okay? So if you can't visualize Tintern Abbey, right? And today you can do that actually, right? Uh, just imagine any, a very famous, kind of a tourist spot, right? Okay, where you could see the river, mountains, hills. So you could visualize, you yourself visualize, okay, right? I mean, the physically you have to, visualize like that. So when you read Wordsworth's poem, got it? You have to animate yourself to understand that, right? Okay, so this is in fact, these two poems are in a shorter poems, very well-known poems of William Wordsworth. Okay, both Immortality Ode and Tintern Abbey, and I think everyone must have studied this in your college also. Okay, so it's a very important poem. No one could say that we did not study that in college. Yeah, but only thing is our perspective or our understanding. Yeah, and looking at very critically also. Okay, beyond the examination, of course, for examination sake, memory and these aspects are very important. Beyond that, the relevance of the poem after 200 years. Okay, in what way, what are the aspects are relevant, and what are we can simply discard, and we can say that it's a very narrow perspective or a broad perspective. How the poem defines the age, okay, how it defines, it presents a stereotypical idea or it challenges the idea. Got it? So that critical approach we must have for everyone. Okay, we are not going to condemn it, but we are going to see each and every author in that sense, whether they were ahead of their time, or I mean in the sense whether they were visionary, whether they were ahead of their time, or they were just following the trends of the time. Got it? Okay, whatever the time, they were not able to go beyond that, right? Or just reflecting how the age was, or the society was, or the current movement was. Got it? Or whether whatever the ideas of the society, whether they just continued with that or challenged it. Okay, so as I told you also, if you look at writers, in the last all these 1,000 years of writers, you will find many of them those who challenged. Got it? Those who were ahead of their time. Got it? Okay, those who thought, those who were able to think. Got it? What we think today, right? Even 100 years ago, 200 years ago, right? Those who had a greater understanding of life also, life, human nature. Got it? So in that sense, you as an individual also, we have to do that, whether the understanding was correct or not. Okay, so that critical approach is also very relevant. Yeah, beyond what we studied. Okay, right? And getting rid of idealisms, right? Most of the in colleges we are taught in a very idealistic way, right? Giving many of idealistic and utopian ideas about literature, poem, poetry, right? That the role of all such thing, which we have to discard, right? Got it? And we have to take in a very different postmodern perspective. Got it? So whether we like it or not, that's the way we must be able to do that. Got it? So here in this poem also we must be able to do in the same way, right? So before we get into the poem, as I told you, as we discussed, right, because of and in online, beyond that, neither we have time and nor the feasibility of discussion, right? It will lead to a lot of noise and problem, right? So anyway, two of our student our friends have discussed, they presented their opinion, right? As we go through the poems of William Wordsworth and Coleridge, our understanding will get that, right? And we'll be able to put ourselves, and we'll be able to see whether whose idea in that sense resonate with us more closer, right? We might not feel with the particular author's ideology, or the his perception about nature completely, but at least in some part, at least. Got it? So in this sense, each one of us too, you have to think about that. Okay, yeah, right. So in a way, what is the importance of nature in human life? Got it? So how much our perception, right? So how we perceive. So in both William Wordsworth and Coleridge and all romantic, one thing was clear. Got it? The subjective consciousness. Yeah. Remember Immanuel Kant's idea. That is, human beings, we understand the world the way we create the world. Yeah, how we see the world. Got it? Through our senses, our logic, our reason. Got it? So how do you understand? Because of your those five senses, right? You look at, right? We conceive because this is the physical world. This physical world is available to us, right? And you could imagine at the time man can't even fly. Got it? So the physical world, the beautiful, imagine the beautiful European setting. Got it? Very beautiful nature, which they were able to see. So through our five senses, we are able to consciously create the world in front of our eyes. Yeah. So in that sense, the consciousness became more important. Okay, that was the time of Immanuel Kant, 1890s. Anyway, it will take another 100 years for Sigmund Freud and others to dismantle that this consciousness is not everything. Got it? So because unconscious and subconscious is more important. Got it? So in a way, simple layman's language, how you see the world and how you conceive the world, how you through conscious world, how you perceive the world, that is everything, right? That's the way you define. So now the question is, how do you conceive the world? Right? In this perception, both Wordsworth and Coolidge slightly differ. Yeah. So here, so we see that now. So how you conceive the world, right? Unlike there's nothing objective world. Okay. The neoclassical அவங்கெல்லாம் என்ன நினைச்சாங்க objective world இருக்கு. எப்படி இருக்கு? They believed in the great forms, right? Forms of Plato, right? The rose, great rose is already, the beautiful rose is there in the heaven. Truth is there. Idealism is there. Honesty is there. God is there. Somewhere there in the up, right? That is what we have been taught, right? For 2000 years. Ideal வந்து மேல இருக்கு. Yeah, invariably, yeah, மேல தான் இருக்கணும், right? And for 1600 years, man conceived the world as flat only. Flat இருக்கையில எப்படி imagine பண்ணாங்க? கடவுள் மேல இருக்காரு, right? The divine, the ideal, the best மேல இருக்கு. இந்த உலகத்துல இருக்கிறது எல்லாமே replica. It's a imitation of that. It's a copy of that, right? Got it? So when an artist writes or creates, he copies from the copy. Got it? And even up to this neoclassical time, they believed, those three worlds, okay? Ellathoda top like God, divine, in between human beings, and in lowest one, down, devils. Okay? And it is not surprising, we always believe that, okay? There are no unconscious and ulla poiruchu நம்ம மைண்டுக்குள்ள, right? Something divine na, invariably divine, something spiritual na மேல தான் இருக்கும், மேல தான். அது ஏன் மேல இருக்கு நம்ம யோசிக்கல, right? 1600 years உலகத்தை அப்படிதான் கன்சீவ் பண்ணாங்க, அவங்க யோசிச்சாங்க. இன்னைக்கு மேல என்ன, ரைட்? இன்னைக்கு உலகம் உருண்டையா இருக்கு, ரைட்? So many planets are there, millions of universe is there, right? So in that sense, the so-called, the upper, our imagination all looks, quite silly, right? So in that sense, assuming that the ideal is there somewhere in the up, right? So neoclassical அப்படிதான் நம்புனாங்க. So ideal is there, rational is there, right? And man must behave like that. Man must follow everything. Got it? Okay? There's nothing that human being conceive பண்றதுக்கு ஒண்ணுமே இல்ல. Already இருக்காங்க. எல்லாம் perfectா இருக்கு. கண்ணுக்கு தெரியல. Right? Use your reason, logic. Right? இப்போ neoclassical time அதுக்கு முதல்ல எடுத்து பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அப்படிதான். Got it? Of course, during the Middle Ages, dark periodல அதுக்கு இம்பார்ட்டன்ஸ் இல்ல. Right? அப்ப இமானுவேல் காண்ட் டைம்ல என்ன வந்துச்சு, right? The consciousness, man வந்து consciousness இருக்கு, right? Through his reason, logic, through his five senses, he can conceive the world. Yeah, right? But these ideas played a very important role in, influencing transcendentalists, particularly William Wordsworth and Coleridge, and later Immanuel Kant, Thoreau, and Whitman. So how you conceive the world? அப்ப நீங்க பார்க்கறது மட்டும் தான் இருக்கு, right? Okay, right? So in that sense, the beautiful scenery is there, right? You have to look at and conceive and see the world. So Wordsworth sees that, the physical nature in a different way. All right. So this idea of consciousness was not there for Dr. Johnson or preceding writers or Alexander Pope. They were not able to conceive. All right. For them, the ideally established world oda reason, logic, discipline எல்லாமே இருக்கு. அதை நம்ம கண்டிப்பா ஃபாலோ பண்ணணும். Objective world அங்க இருக்கு, right? இவங்க வந்து வேர்ட்ஸ்வர்த், இமானுவேல் காண்ட்லாம் நம்ம கன்சீவ் பண்றதா தான் இருக்கு. How you see the world, right? So the man became the center, right? How you see the world, right? Your perception. So subjective perception became very important, right? So the subjective consciousness or subjective perception, right? அப்ப இது subjective perception மட்டும் பத்தாது, right? Subjective perception வந்து only 5%. The consciousness is only 5%. Remaining 95% is unconscious and subconscious. சொல்றதுக்கு இன்னொரு 70 வருஷம் ஆகும் சிக்மண்ட் ஃப்ராய்ட் வரையில. Got it? So in a way, in that sense, he completely dismantles Plato and Kant's idea, right? That's why Freud and Karl Marx and others like Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, right? Those great philosophers later, 70, 60, 70 years அப்புறம் வந்து இந்த ஐடியாஸ்லாம் incomplete சொல்லுவாங்க. அப்போ the questioning the very rationale of these enlightenment thinkers and அவங்களோட idea. Right? அப்போ Wordsworth வந்து இந்த டைம்ல they were influenced by that. Right? அப்போ how do you conceive? Right? And already influenced by Rousseau's idea, right? That the elevating effect of nature, rural, right? And the uncivilized, impact, bad impact of, city life, urban life. Got it? Okay. So in this context, so here how Wordsworth looks at all these aspects, right? Okay. So in this context, these two poems and all the poems of Wordsworth, we have to look at. Right? Okay, so this poem also, like Tintern Abbey, right? Before we get into the poem, right? First look at, what was, the Tintern Abbey, right? Some information about, Tintern Abbey, all right? Okay, some general information, something about that, right? So Tintern Abbey was one of, as the title says, it was one of the abbeys, okay? Very well-known abbey, monastery. So yeah, it was, created in 1131. Right, 1131. It was a monastery. In short, monasteries, monasteries okay, right, and up to for how many years? Almost for till 1530s, yeah, 35. Got it? Till this time. Okay. Dissolution of monastery already தெரியும் உங்களுக்கு. Henry VIII to the Protestant movement, right? He dissolved all the monasteries. Okay, Protestant movement after his marriage with Queen Elizabeth's mother Anne Boyle in 1533. Okay, 1533 la marriage kapram what he did, he wanted to establish the Church of England. Okay, so Church of England ku establish permanent establish பண்றதுக்கு என்ன, right? So 3 or 4 things are very important. Completely dissolving all these Roman Catholic monasteries. Okay, so he destroyed all the Roman Catholic monasteries between 1536 and 1542 varaikkum. And the 6 years la ellathayum destroy pannirvaru. All nuns and sisters were sent away, particularly Franciscan and Dominican nuns. Okay, Franciscan friars and Dominican friars and all the convents and nuns. Okay, they were sent away. All those who were below 30, they were forced to marry, and many objected to that. Many were killed, right, and dissolved, and looted all the money. Got it? All the money, monasteries, land, right, property, jewels, everything. Got it? Okay, he completely destroyed everything, right? And we know that later he how he spent the money. He started Trinity College. He spent most of the money on establishing the harbor. Okay, making the navy very strong, right? Henry VIII's time. Okay, in the next 7 to 8 years. Got it? And all the lands, what he got from the lands from these monasteries and churches and convents, he distributed it to all the landed gentries. Okay, all the rich, the so-called parliamentarians and all very important people of throughout England, Scotland, and Wales. Okay, and we know that on the landed gentry sort of influence so much it was that even later Queen Elizabeth they resisted. James I, Charles I, Charles II, James II, almost for 200 years they resist pannanga and they never allowed, right? And what happened in that sense? He completely destroyed, okay, and established Church of England. Okay, right? That is the history of these monasteries. Got it? And it's not surprising. And that's this looting this land, okay, whatever the land, he got it from that and distributing it to these landed gentries. That's why Protestant religion survived. Got it? Because many tried to revive that later. Got it? They were not able to do that because these landed gentries objected to that, because they would be losing if the country goes back to Roman Catholicism. They would be losing all the money, all the land, whatever they got from these people. And later subsequent generation and third and fourth generation also resisted, right? In this sense, for example, Anglican Church became the became the main church in England. Okay, main church in England, even today, till today. Got it? Today also almost 95%, it's Anglican church rules. Okay, hardly 5% you will find Catholic. Okay, so that was one of the very well known abbey. Right. Some more information about that. Right. So the abbey was founded on 9th May 1131 by Walter D. Clare, Lord of Chepstow. Okay. It was situated adjacent to the village of Tintern in Monmouthshire. Okay, so remember the name. Okay, on the banks of the river Wye, right? So it was almost, at the border of England and Wales. Okay, so this side the Gloucestershire was there, and western side it was Monmouthshire, right? Near the on the banks of river Wye, this was founded. It was the first Christian foundation in Wales and only the second in Britain, okay, after Waverley Abbey. The abbey fell into ruins on the dissolution of monasteries in the 16th century. It remains to have been celebrated in poetry and painting from 18th century onwards, right? Abbey ruins lay forgotten until 18th century. Then something wild and romantic began to stir in British heart. Tintern was about to experience a second heyday, this time as a major tourist destination. Okay, particularly became tourist destination after around when they published one of the earliest engraving was done by Pug Brothers in 1732. Okay, 1732 and 1780s and 90s, particularly Wordsworth, right? And important Turner, the painter. Okay, he painted one of the very famous landscape painting, and after that, till today, it's a very famous tourist spot. Got it? And it became it has been celebrated in paintings and poems. Yeah. So this was the one of the earliest painting by J.M.W. Turner, right? A very famous painting. Got it? Of Tintern Abbey in 1792. Got it? Right? And this is the present day, you Google map, you can see that, right? This is the abbey. Got it? This is that old building. Got it? And this is the road actually. This is, you can find Wine River Wye. Okay, another 2 kilometers, it will miss, it will go into the sea. Okay, right? And this is, this side it is the western side. Okay, it is the Wales. Got it? If you go another 1 kilometer, Wales will come. Yeah, this is this side main England. It is southwestern England. Okay, so you can find all that. Right, it's a very tourist spot. Very famous tourist spot today. So these are the ruins of that. Okay, got it. So we don't. This is the Wine River. 200 years ago, we might not know exactly Wordsworth went and he sat with his sister, right? But he was able to see Wine River, and beyond this side, you'll find lot of forest. Okay, yeah. Even today, you'll find forest, right? Of course, a lot of development also you can see, and this side also, almost for 1 kilometer, you'll find big forest, and in between there is a lake also, right? At least some pristine beauty they saved it, but Wordsworth's time there must have been more, but industrialization was beginning. Okay, right? So we could see that the influence of that, right? So that's why the whole poem, there's a lot of comparison between city life and the comparing city life with that of countryside. Got it? So this is the present day picture. You can see that. Got it? So beyond this, this side you'll find the river Wine. Got it? So this is the monastery and this area, right? These are the ruins. Got it? So this is the Tintern Abbey. Okay, the famous monastery. But at the very beginning, please remember that Wordsworth does not, though the title is Tintern Abbey, but Wordsworth does not. The full title is Tintern Abbey, or the lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey. So yeah, no way Wordsworth describes the abbey. Okay, abbey history அதெல்லாம் எதுவுமே describe பண்ணல, right? Maybe few miles na ஒரு 1 kilometer 2 kilometer பக்கத்துல இங்க லேண்ட்ஸ்கேப்ல வைன் ரிவர் பார்த்து அவர் நியர்பைல இருந்திருப்பாரு. சரியா, அங்க இருந்து he must have observed, have a good time, and he must have wrote this poem. Okay, maybe read later at that night. Got it? So we don't get, okay, but we get the surrounding area. Okay, the Wine River and all, the surrounding areas, picturesque landscape is described. Okay, right? So this is the inside of that famous abbey. Got it? So these are the ruins, right? So if you go to England, right, all of you are quite well off. So all of you can go to England. So when you go to England, all of you can visit that also, right? If you are very passionate about literature or Wordsworth. Okay, right? Yeah. So that is the, keeping that in mind. Yeah. Let's look at the text. Okay. Right. So and remember, right, whole Wordsworth ideology. Right. He was a nature poet. As we proceed, after completing, we'll have a look at the biographical details of William Wordsworth, at least later, at least a short gist on his life. Got it. So here in this poem, right, as the title says, Tintern Abbey, lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey on revisiting the banks of the River Wye during a tour, okay, on July 13, 1798. Okay, so exact date is also given there, the date, right? So if you look at the broadly, the whole poem talks about Wordsworth's nature, its attitude towards nature, or how, nature influenced and molded him. Okay, so in that sense, Wordsworth attitude, okay, how Wordsworth became mature, right? Most important idea is how Wordsworth became mature, right? And it's three stages of his development. Got it? Yeah. So he says that stage one, how we conceived nature, how we looked at nature, what nature was to him, right? And stage two, how we looked at nature. Got it? And stage three, finally, right? So at the age of 1798, he was born in 1770. About 28 years later, he has reached the third stage. Got it? After going through the poem, you can think about that. Whether நம்ம வந்து third stage reach ஆனோமா, நம்மளால ஆக முடியுமா? Common man வந்து first stage வரும், ரொம்ப பேருக்கு second stage வரும். Right? என்ன stage? நம்ம as we proceed, we'll see to that. Right? Third stage வந்து common man க்கு வரவே வராது. Unless you are a poet, unless you are a visionary. Got it? Right? So we see that, how we conceive nature and what are the three stages, right? Okay. So as the title says, right, revisiting. Okay. So Wordsworth has visited this place already, right, 5 years ago. That is in 1793. Got it? After 1793, when he was 23 years old, he has visited, right? And after spending 5 years again, he has come back, right? From 1793 to 1798. After 5 years, how he visited again, and he compares. He says that how the whole place was, and how I looked at, and how these intervening years I have spent my time. Got it? And how we conceive the nature today. Got it? Right? And how we spend the life, and what are the lessons he learned, and how even during the absence from this place, this nature, how it inspired him, it motivated him, it helped him, yeah, making him his personality, right? And at present, today, when he has come back again second time with his sister, yeah, how he conceives today, right? His attitude, he says that. Got it? He says that I don't feel the same thing what I felt 5 years ago, but something more divine, something more elevated, something more spiritual, something more deeper he feels today, he says. Got it? This feeling, for some people, even the second stage, many people may not get the second stage, right? Unless you are a very visionary, we can see that as we proceed, right? But for all, ordinary people, they just spend their whole life, yeah, right? Whole life in first stage, right? Got it? As we proceed, பார்க்கலாம் என்ன ஸ்டேஜ்ல இருக்கு, நீங்க எப்படி நேச்சரை கன்சீவ் பண்றீங்க, how you look at the nature, right? Or when you visit such spots, right, such tourist spot, whether Wordsworth சொல்ற first stageல இருந்து வாழ்க்கை பூரா, ஈவன் வாழ்க்கை பூரா முடிச்சிடுறாம first stageல, அதே மாதிரி the animal movement what Wordsworth describes. Got it? Okay, right? இல்ல second stage வருமா, இல்ல third stage வரீங்களா? There are people those who come to the third stage, right? Got it? Unless you are quite philosophical and poet, right? And finally he says that how this year he has visited this place along with his sister. He says that the nature's great influence, how nature has compensated him, nature has given him the great thoughts, and how nature helped him, molded him like his teacher, mentor. Got it? And he says to his addressing to his sister also, he says that please remember this time, right? And finally that the impact, how your brother was here with you this time, and how your brother loved this physical nature, how we worshipped it, right? and he prays to her, and he says that finally the elevating effect of physical nature. Yeah, that nature, there is a divine, there is a divine inspiration, there's a god, there's a union of man can be with nature, right? He says that nature never almost never betrays the people, those who love, yeah, or those who are develop the final communion with the nature, right? Nature in a sense of the physical nature, and looking at the nature அப்படியே ஒரு divine or கடவுளா அந்த மாதிரி பார்த்து, right, getting the inspiration and getting the lessons of life from the physical nature. When he says nature, it includes all human beings, okay, the downtrodden, poor, farmers, leech gatherers, shepherd, everyone. Got it? Okay, so in that sense, nature, no, don't imagine just physical nature. So here, for them, nature means physical nature, human nature, ரெண்டுமே சேர்த்து. Okay, neoclassical, when they mentioned nature, it was only physical, human being ஓட behavior தான். சரியா? physical nature அவங்களுக்குலாம் இடமே இல்லை. physical nature அந்த மாதிரி அவங்களால consume பண்ண முடியல, right? That's why they have never been. You won't find such diction. இப்போ Wordsworth யூஸ் பண்ற diction, எந்த dictionம் இந்த மாதிரி words உங்களுக்கு neoclassical poetsல தெரியாது, right? Like valleys, mountains, daffodils, river, rainbow, cloud, cuckoo, இந்த மாதிரி basic word இருக்காது அலெக்சாண்டர் போப்போட போயமோ டாக்டர் ஜான்சனோட போயம்ல. சரியா? Right? In fact, they have never been to even to countryside. In fact, okay, most of them they spent, right, in London only, right? They spent their time in London, and they wrote about human upper class society ஓட அவங்களோட வாழ்க்கை பத்தி தான் எழுதினாங்க, right? They have never been to even places like Lake District where Wordsworth was born. Okay, Lake District is the so-called the famous Lake District. Yeah, it's in the northwestern England. Okay, almost borders with Scotland. Yeah, so that is the place where Wordsworth and Coleridge spend their most of their time, and most of their poems were written, okay, after this. In fact, okay, lyrical bats published ஆனதுக்கு அப்புறம் ரெண்டு பேருமே பெர்மனன்ட்டாவே அங்க போயிருவாங்க. Yeah, 1795 Wordsworth will meet Coleridge. 1797, they do that. 98, 99 they will visit Germany again, right? And after that, they will come back, and the remaining life they spent in Lake District. Okay, Lake District will be a very beautiful one. Okay, so you'll find even today, if you visit இன்னைக்கு அவ்வளவு பியூட்டிஃபுல்லா இருந்துச்சுன்னா அன்னைக்கு போய் இருந்திருக்கும். சரியா? Right? So that's another one. So அவங்களோட whole nature, அவங்களோட whole poetic summary எல்லாமே, that is the experience they had, right? So keeping this in mind, let's look at the text, right? So this is the that full title of the poem, Tintern Abbey, right? A lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey on revisiting the banks of Wye River, right, during a tour that is on 13th July 1798. Okay, so if we see that almost more than 200 years, right, 220-30 years now. Got it? Right? So this is right. This is the poem. 5 years have passed, 5 summer with the length of 5 long winters, and again I hear these waters rolling from the mountain springs with a soft inland murmur. Once again do I behold these steep and lofty cliffs that on a wild secluded scene impress thoughts of more deep seclusion and connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky. The day is come when I again repose here under this dark sycamore tree, and view these plots of cottage ground, these orchard tufts, which is at this season with their unripe fruits are clad in one green hue and lose themselves mild groves and crops. Once again I see these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows, little lines of supportive wood run wild, these pastel form green to the very door, and breath of smoke sent up in silence from among the trees, with the uncertain notice, as might seem, of vagrant dwellers in household woods, or some hermit's cave, where by his fire the hermit sits alone. Yeah, right? So these are the first 22 lines of the poem, right? At the end of the completing the poem, we'll talk about the different parts of the poem. The poem has got total 162 lines. Okay, right? So and so Wordsworth begins this poem with a physical description, right? Physical description of this place. Okay, right? So as the very first title says, The first line, right? He has come here after 5 years, right? So 5 years have passed. 5 years have passed, 5 summers with a length of 5 long winters, right? So the very first two line he describes that he is visiting this year this place, Tintern Abbey, yeah, almost after 5 years, right? Right? Okay. So in after the interval of 5 years. So the first time he visited in the year 1793, right? Okay. So he says that in these 5 years, many summers have passed, 5 summers and 5 winter, and these were quite long winters. Okay. And again, I hear these water. He says that these 5 years, 5 long winters. In a way, he says that must be the mental agony, right? Must he must have felt something, the mental crisis during these 5 years. Maybe we could assume that most have been, right. In a way, it's a very subjective poem. We may not know exactly what it might be, but definitely, the influence of French Revolution was there. Okay, right. French Revolution or idealism, as it began in 1789 and up to 1791, 92, it wasn't the same one. Got it? Okay, so during these 5 years when Wordsworth was, he was there, even between, during this time, he has been to France also. Got it? Okay, France போயிருந்தாரு in the revolution போயிட்டு இருக்கையில, then he came back, right? அப்ப he was not happy, okay, the way, after Napoleon took over and, how this whole Napoleonic war started, okay, around 1793. Got it? அப்ப so many idealisms of French Revolution வந்து அவள success ஆகல, right? Almost it was going into, rather than implementing those idealisms, right? Okay, the egalitarian society, fraternity, brotherhood, all that French Revolution சொன்னது அது ஒரு டிஸ்ட்ரிபியூஷன் மாதிரி ஆயிப்போச்சு. இது ஒரு நெப்போலியனிக் வார்னு சொல்லி Napoleon became dictator and the war was going on. War has started, right? And we could see that must have felt like that, right? That this is what he assumed, right? There are many people know those so many things people assume. No, இன்னைக்கு present government, right? நம்மள assume பண்றோம்ல so many things, government வந்தா இப்படி மாறிடுவாங்க, இப்படி பண்ணிடுவாங்க, அப்படி பண்ணிடுவாங்க, right? ஆனா ஒண்ணுமே நடக்காது, right? So many things, right? Got it? அப்ப அதே மாதிரி, right? Those who concerned, those who are concerned for the world, they feel okay. இப்போ Wordsworthலாம் definitely overall broad level ஒரு சொசைட்டி, எகாலிட்டேரியன் சொசைட்டின்னு வரையில அந்த மாதிரி யோசிக்கிறவங்க இருப்பாங்க. சரியா? எங்க சொந்தக்காரில் ஒருத்தர் இருக்காருப்பா, அவர் ரொம்ப ஃபீல் வரும், நாடு இப்படி போயிட்டு இருக்கு, நாட்டுல இப்படி நடக்குது, நாட்டுல நல்லது நடக்கலையே, மக்கள் எல்லாம் ரொம்ப ஃபீல் பண்ணுவாரு. சரியா? அதர்ஸ் பண்ண மாட்டாங்க, பட் அவர் எப்பவுமே நாட்டை பத்தியே யோசிப்பாரு, ரைட்? அந்த மாதிரி அவங்களுக்கு எல்லாம் என்னன்னா ஒரு ஐடியலிசம்ல ஓகே இப்படி இருக்குன்னு. சரியா? அப்ப மோஸ்ட் ஆஃப் தி டைம் என்ன ஆகுது, ஐடியலிசம் நடக்கிறது இல்ல. சரியா? இப்ப நம்ம பிரசன்ட் டிஸ்பென்சஸ் எடுத்து பார்த்தாலே தெரியும், மெனி பீப்புள் அஸ்யூம் சோ மெனி திங்ஸ் இருக்கும், நடந்திருக்கும்னு. ஆனா இப்ப எடுத்து பார்த்தா இன்னைக்கு கண்டிஷன் ரொம்ப வர்ஸ்டா இருக்கு, ரைட்? 10 வருஷத்தோட நம்ம இன்னும் பின்னாடி போயிட்டோம்னு தான் சொல்றாங்க, ரைட்? Same as so many things, right? Okay, even in political setup or different kind of setup, people have lot of idealisms and build utopian idea, right? அப்ப அது ஃபுல்ஃபில் ஆவாட்டி என்ன, அப்ப அதே மாதிரி ஹியூமன் நேச்சரும் அதே மாதிரி டிஃப்ரெண்ட் ஆஸ்பெக்ட்ல. அப்ப வேர்ட்ஸ்வொர்த் என்ன ஓவரால் இந்த மாதிரி சொசைட்டி நம்ம ஐடியல் பண்ணியிருந்தோம், ரைட்? அப்ப இந்த லாங் விண்டர்ஸ் சொல்றதுக்கு மேபி த ரீசன் இருக்கலாம், ரைட்? பிகாஸ் these not just the 5 summer or the 5 winter, right? The mental agony which he must have gone through, right? So he says that after 5 years I have come here, and again I hear this water rolling from the mountain spring with a soft inland murmur. Yeah, he says that I have come again after 5 years. I can still hear the soft murmuring sound of the river water, right? Of this river Wye, these water referring to river Wye, W-Y-E. Okay, right? He says that the water is flowing down, yeah, creating the murmurous sound. Yeah, right? So the sound of the flying river, he says that it is subdued. Okay, the soft one, right? Okay, maybe because of, we could assume that the nearby kilometer, we could see that there was a sea. Got it? Maybe the sound of that must have made like that. So he says that even after 5 years, again I hear the same. Yeah, look at the line again. Again I hear this water rolling from the mountain spring, right? அப்போ பிகினிங்ல என்ன டிஸ்கிரைப் பண்றாரு, 5 இயர்ஸ்க்கு முதல்ல இருந்தேன், 5 இயர்ஸ்க்கு அப்புறம் திருப்பி வந்திருக்கேன், அதே மாதிரி தான் ஃபீல் பண்றேன். Got it? Okay, அதே தான் நான் பார்க்கிறேன். Physical senses, the senses பத்தி டிஸ்கிரைப் பண்றாரு, the physical movement, right? How we observed. Got it? அவரோட inner perception எப்படி மாறுச்சு, அது changes வந்துச்சா? As we proceed, we'll come and see that. So I again hear the same water rolling down from the mountain springs, yeah, with a soft inland murmur. Once again I do behold these steep and lofty cliff. Again I look at, again I look at those steep and lofty cliffs again. Yeah, I don't know, if you feel like that. Got it? If I go there, no, definitely feel it. When I go to Andaman Nicobar Island, right? Okay, I go to it. There's a very famous, place, Chidiyatapu known as. Got it? Okay. இப்போ நீங்க அங்க இருந்து நின்று பாத்தீங்கன்னா ஒரு 3 கிலோமீட்டருக்கு ஒரு தள்ளி ஒரு பெரிய ஐலண்ட் தெரியும். சரியா? It is known as Rutland Island. Okay, Rutland Island. அது பார்த்தா அப்படியே கருப்பா தெரியும். Got it? And lot of mythical stories அதை பற்றி சொல்லியிருப்பாங்க. அந்த ஐலண்ட்ல யாருமே இருக்கிறது இல்ல, அங்க வந்து கருப்பு மான்லாம் இருக்கு, அங்க so many animals இருக்கு, அது ஒரு ரிசர்வ் ஏரியா, யாருமே போக கூடாது. அப்ப அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு அந்த இமேஜ் கொடுப்பாங்க. அந்த சீல நின்று பார்த்தா அந்த ஐலண்ட் அப்படியே தெரியும். இப்ப நம்ம 30 வருஷமா எடுத்து பார்த்தா அன்னைக்கு பார்த்த மாதிரியே தான் இன்னைக்கும் இருக்கும். அப்ப அந்த மாதிரி இடத்துல நீங்க திருப்பி பார்த்தா அதே மவுண்டன், அதே கிளிஃப் அப்படியே தான். அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு இமேஜினேஷன் நீங்க வச்சுக்கோங்க. ரைட்? So it says that again I look at the same. Yeah. So it says that once again I do behold the same, those steep and lofty cliff. Yeah. Those high mountains, right? Nearby Tintern, as I told you in the picture, right? River kanda pakkom, river kinda pakkom, Tintern kinda pakkom, almost over 1-2 kilometers full of forest and mountains தான். சரியா? இன்னைக்கே அவ்வளவு இருக்கு. இன்னைக்கு நமக்கு கரெக்ட் இமேஜ் கிடைக்காது. சரியா? இன்னைக்கு 200 இயர்ஸ்க்கு அப்புறம் எடுக்கிறோம். சரியா? இன்னைக்குள்ள கூகுள் இமேஜ் அது. ரைட்? அன்னைக்கெல்லாம் அதோட ரொம்ப இருந்திருக்கும். சரியா? இண்டஸ்ட்ரியல் ரெவல்யூஷன் பிகான் ஆயிடுச்சு, ஆனா அங்கெல்லாம் ரொம்ப எஃபெக்ட் ஆகல. ரைட்? So those high mountains, yeah? Got it? So he says that once again I see that. Once again I do behold these steep and lofty cliff that on a wild secluded scene impress thoughts of more deep seclusion and connect the landscape with the quiet of the sky. Yeah, right? He says that, this whole atmosphere, yeah, it was a quite very, very secluded and very lonely atmosphere of the scene. Right? And these mountain என்ன பண்ணுது, அப்படியே ஸ்கையோட போய் கனெக்ட் ஆகுறது வந்து அப்படியே ஒரு காம் அட்மாஸ்பியர் மாதிரி ப்ரொஜெக்ட் பண்ணுது. Yeah, right? So the skyயோட சேர்ந்து, yeah, so these lofty and soft cliffs that on a wide secluded scene, very lonely scene, impress thoughts of more deep seclusion and connect the landscape with the quietness of the sky. Yeah, right? It makes us even very lonely. Yeah, this lonely atmosphere, deep seclusion means lonely, and connects the landscape. This seclusion of this mountain, இது வந்து கனெக்ட் பண்ணி அப்படியே போய் அந்த லேண்ட்ஸ்கேப் வந்து அந்த quietness of the sky, the seclusion of the sky ஓட சேர்ந்து அப்படியே ஒரு இமேஜை கிரியேட் பண்ணுது. Got it? So in this sense, this the same quietness and loneliness is created in the heart of the poet also. Okay, the narrator or the poet or Wordsworth here. Yeah, the day is come when I again repose here under this sycamore and view these plots of cottage ground. Yeah, he says that the day has come again today where I repose. Repose means to take rest. I am looking at, right? He must have come there and sat there. Got it? Produce spot la போய் உட்கார்ந்துகிட்டு அப்படியே just imagine பண்ணிருங்க, அப்படியே ஒரு mountains பார்க்குற மாதிரி. Got it? And the sensibility இருக்கணும் first of all. Okay, right? As I told you, the poem படிச்சதுக்கு அப்புறம் ரொம்ப பேருக்கு வந்து அந்த first sensibilityல முடிஞ்சிரும். சரியா? செகண்ட் டே வரவே வராது. ரைட்? நம்ம பார்க்கலாம் முடிச்சவனே என்ன அந்த 3 stages of Wordsworthோட டெவலப்மெண்ட். தேர்ட் வந்து சான்ஸே இல்லை. தேர்ட் வந்து 99.9 பீப்புளுக்கு வராது, unless you are a great poet and philosopher. அந்த மாதிரி you are ஒரு பெரிய philosophical அந்த மாதிரி இருந்தாதான். ரைட்? ரைட்? For many of them first stageல முடிஞ்சிடும், செகண்ட் ஸ்டேஜ் கொஞ்சம் பேருக்கு வரும். ரைட்? Okay, so he says that the days come when I again repose. I take rest here under this sycamore tree. Okay, sycamore, is a kind of a fig tree. சரியா? Mostly it grows in West Asia, Syria, Egypt, Iran, Iraq, right? Or different type of a fig tree. Yeah, but even England la kuda or different variety irukum. சரியா? So he says that where under this dark sycamore tree when he was sitting and you looking at these plot cottages, right? He says that from there you can look at those grassy plot cottages, right? Small cottages and orchard tufts, right? Orchard tufts refers to the group of fruit trees. Okay, fruit trees, right? Okay, and so from there அவர் உட்கார்ந்து பார்க்கிறாரு. Under the tree, he was able to see the cottage ground and orchard shrubs, which at this season with the unripe fruit were clad in a one green hue. Yeah, and he says that the season he went there, right? It was a mid of summer, it seems. Okay, July, got it? July, in the month of July, and that's why all these fruits were unripe. Okay, and they were unripe, so they looked green. And in that sense, when he was able to look at this whole natural scenery, was looking quite green. Okay, because even the fruit, right, even the fruits were unripe. Yeah, so he was able to look at the cottage ground, orchard troughs with the season. When this season refers to mid of summer. Okay, around July, right, with unripe fruits are clad in one green hue and lose themselves mid groves and copses, right? And all of them, they lose themselves and they become one with the trees and bushes. Okay, mid groves and copses. Small trees. Okay, small trees and bushes. In that sense, ஒரு டிஃபரன்ஸே தெரியாம ஒரு green, complete greenery scene மாதிரி தெரிஞ்சிச்சு. Once again, I see these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows, little lines of supportive wood run wild. Yeah, these pastoral form, green to the very door, the wreath of smoke sent up in silence. Yeah, he says that even the hedge, right? Hedge has grown itself. Okay, the hedge of the plots. Okay, so once again he's able to see the hedgerows, right? How the hedgerows have given, right? Yeah, it says that hedgerows வந்து அதாவே grow ஆயிடுச்சு. சரியா, யாரும் அதை ட்ரிம் பண்ணி ஒரு பார்டர் மாதிரி பண்ணல, ரைட்? ஹெஜ்ரோஸ்னா தெரியும்ல, அந்த பிளான்ட் வைப்பாங்க ஒரு இந்த ஒரு கார்டனோட எண்டிங் முடியல ஒரு பார்டர் மாதிரி அந்த ட்ரீஸை புஷஸை க்ரோ பண்ண விடுவாங்க. சரியா, ரைட்? So these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows, little line of supportive would run wild, and these pastoral forms of green to the very door. Yeah, he says that these hedgerows have grown itself, right? Okay, and it has grown so much, right? And they have appeared as if they have become, grown over, and no one has pruned them. Yeah, it has grown wild. Yeah, and it looks, and it has even entered into these pastoral farms. Yeah, so there's unable to differentiate between where the farm ends and the hedgerows come, right? And green to the very door. Yeah, even up to the door, the whole landscape has become completely green. And wreath of smoke sent up in silence. And suddenly, he sees that he was able to see the smoke. Silently, smoke is coming out. Yeah. Green to the very door, the wreath of smoke sent up in silence from among the trees with uncertain notice. He was able to see this, among the trees, inside, from the inside, because silently the smoke was coming out. Yeah, right? The smoke arising from the inside that, right? Assuming that someone might be there. Okay, or a vagrant dweller in the household wood. Maybe some vagrant dwellers, maybe some tribal people. Okay, some foresters, right? They might be doing their household work, and they might have, lighted up this, fire, and the smoke might be coming out from there, right? Got it? And he's, he was unable to discriminate. Okay, because smoke was coming from, from different area, right? Uncertain notice, meaning is or certainty illa correct solla mudiyala. It might seem, that's why the word might, of a vagrant dweller, maybe some tribal or the forester, those who live there, or some hermit's cave, or maybe some tribal or some gypsies like that, or some hermit, some saint. Okay, some religious man, right? Hermit na the saint. Okay, or some hermit's cave whereby the fire the hermit sits alone. Yeah, or this fire smoke might be coming out. It might be the dwelling of such person. Yeah, he might be living in a secluded, in alone, and he might have lighted this fire, and that's why the smoke was also, he was able to see that, right? So these hedgerows, hardly hedgerows, little lines of supporting woods run, while these pastoral form green to the every road. Yeah, so in that sense, the whole area, the whole farmhouse was full of greenery. Yeah, from among the trees. Yeah, and wreath of smoke sent up in silence from among the trees, with some uncertain notice, as might seem of vagrant dwellers in the household woods, or some hermit's cave, where by his fire the hermit sits alone. Yeah. So this is the first, description of the place he describes. Got it? So this is the 1798 when he visited again. Right? These beauteous forms through long absence have not been to me as in the landscape to a blind mind's eye, but oft in lonely room and the din of towns and cities, I have owed to them in hours of weariness, sensation sweet, felt in blood and felt along the heart, and passing even into my purer mind with tranquil restoration, feeling too of unnumbered pleasure, such perhaps as to have no sight or trivial influence on that best portion of man's good man's life, his little nameless unremembered acts of kindness and love. Nor less I trust to them, I may have owned another gift of more aspect more sublime, that blessed mood in which the burthen of the mystery, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all the unintelligible world is lighted. The serene and blessed mood in which the affection gently leads us on until the breath of this corporal frame and even the motion of our human mood, in which the affection gently leads us on until the breath of this corporal frame and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended. We are laid asleep in body and become a living soul, while with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and a deep power of joy, we see into life of things. Right? So let's look at the second stanza. Line number 23. So of these beautiful forms through long absence have not been to me as a landscape to the blind man's eye. Yeah, he says that these beautiful forms, referring to these beautiful scenes of nature. Yeah, and he says that through this long gap absence, right? The long absence gap of 5 years of 5 year, as he has told at the beginning, right? Have not been to me as in the landscape to a blind mind's eye. He says that these beautiful scenes have not been forgotten by him, okay, even after the gap of 5 years, right? The blind man, actually, blind man, will not remember the things, okay. That's why he says that blind man cannot remember things. That's why the line blind man's eye. It was not a blind man's eye, he says that, because man may not remember the scene because he has not seen it, okay, the physical scene. Yeah. So he says that though the 5 years have passed, but I have not forgotten these beautiful scenes, right? It is there in my mind. Yeah, how it was there, that is the question. Yeah, as in landscape to a blind man's eye, but often in the lonely rooms in the mid, the din of towns and cities. Yeah, he says that these beautiful scenes I have not forgotten, right? Even while I was living in the din, the hurry-burry of the city life, okay, and the town life, referring to London, the 5 years he spent in London, and those years he went to even, France, right? Got it? So he says that these intervening years, you was spent most of the time in London, yeah, but even during this time, okay, in his mind, in his soul, he was always thinking about these landscape. These beautiful scenes were there, though it was a very mental and torturous period because the effect of French Revolution almost influenced him so much. Yeah, but he says that during those time also, I have not forgotten. Right, I have not forgotten these beautiful sceneries. Right, I have owed to them in hours of weariness, sensation sweet, felt in blood and felt along the heart. He says that these, sensation sweets, referring to, I have a very pleasant recollections. Okay, yeah. So in the hours of weariness, in the hours of tiredness, okay, in the hours of anxiety, pain, and suffering, right? These pleasant recollections I kept. I felt in my blood. Yeah. It even influenced, thrilled his innermost heart. Blood, na? It has influenced him so much. It felt in my heart. Yeah, even the innermost emotions of mine. That is the poet, right? So even during this time, these images have impacted during my absence. Yeah, right. A ordinary mind man not might not feel that. Got it? So we see that, the growth of the poet here. Got it? So even this 5 years, he says that during the hours of weariness, not pain, suffering, depression, yeah, these sensation sweets, right? These pleasant recollections, right? Okay, as we remember, at the end of the day, finally, இதெல்லாம் நம்ம இதெல்லாம் நம்ம இவ்வளவு டீப்பா ஃபீல் பண்ணாட்டி கூட டெஃபினெட்லி இதுக்கெல்லாம் இம்பாக்ட் இருக்கு. Yeah, and I mean invariably that's why people take photographs, no? People அப்போ டூரிஸ்ட் ஸ்பாட் போயிட்டு எது போட்டோகிராஃப் எடுக்கிறாங்க, எதுக்கு ஆல்பம் பண்றாங்க, எதுக்கு திருப்பி திருப்பி பாக்குறாங்க, சம் இமோஷன்ஸ் கொடுக்குது. ஓகே, இது எவ்வளவு கொடுக்குது, எவ்வளவு டீப் கொடுக்குது, அது வேற விஷயம், ரைட்? அப்ப நம்ம கம்ப்ளீட்டா வேர்ட்ஸ்வர்த்தோட ஐடியாவை அது கம்ப்ளீட்டா டிஸ்கார்ட் பண்ணவே முடியாது, ரைட்? ஈவன் தோ நம்ம செகண்ட் ஸ்டேஜ் எடுத்தா கூட, ரைட்? அப்ப இதுக்கு இம்பாக்ட் ஈவன் இன்னைக்கும் இருக்கு. தட்ஸ் வை பீப்புள் கோ டு டூரிஸ்ட் ஸ்பாட்ஸ், ரைட்? அப் சம்திங் டஸ், ஓகே, ரைட்? ஜஸ்ட் ஒரு டைம் பாஸ் போறோம், பட் ரைட், ஓகே, ஐ மீன் த லேண்ட்ஸ்கேப் பிளேஸ் அ ரோல், ரைட்? அப்ப வெதர் செலிபிரிட்டியோ யாரோ, அப்ப இந்த லேண்ட்ஸ்கேப் எப்படி வேணா இருக்கலாம், பீச் இருக்கலாம், மவுண்டன் இருக்கலாம், ரிவர் இருக்கலாம், பிசிக்கல் பில்டிங் இருக்கலாம், எது வேணா இருக்கலாம், ரைட்டா? இதோட இம்பாக்ட் இருக்கு. இது வந்து யாரும் டிஸ்கார்ட் பண்ண முடியாது, ரைட்? அப்ப நம்ம கம்ப்ளீட்டா 200 இயர்ஸ் ஆயிடுச்சு வேர்ட்ஸ்வர்த் அது சொன்னதெல்லாம் நம்ம கம்ப்ளீட்டா எடுக்க முடியாது. நோ, ரைட்? தேர் ஆர் ஆஸ்பெக்ட் which we can take that the impact of how the emotions, right? But this perception about that அவர் எப்படி பர்சீவ் பண்ணாரு, அது இது வந்து ஜெனரல் ஹியூமனிட்டிக்கு இவ்வளவு ரோல் பிளே பண்ணுமா, அதை நம்ம நம்ப முடியாது, ரைட்டா? வேர்ட்ஸ்வர்த் பண்ணிருக்கு, ரைட்டா? ரைட்? அதை விட்டுட்டு இதை வச்சு இது எல்லாருக்கும் ஒரு ஒரு காமன் மெசேஜா கொடுக்க முடியும், இது இட் வில் டு தி இம்பாக்ட், அந்த ஆஸ்பெக்ட்ல எல்லாம் we should question. Okay, so I have to them in the hours of weariness. Them refers to this landscape, okay, the beautiful landscape, சரியா? Right? Exceptional, okay, Wordsworth was the exceptional worshipper of nature, okay, right? நம்ம அந்த லெவலுக்கு இருக்காட்டி கூட ஆர்டினரி லெவல்ல இருக்கையில மக்களுக்கு ஒரு ஃபீலிங் இருக்கு. ஓகே, அப்ப ஒருத்தர் வந்து ஒரு ஆல்பம் ஓபன் பண்ணியோ நம்ம போற டூரிஸ்ட் ஸ்பாட்டோ அந்த போட்டோகிராஃப்ஸ் பார்த்தா ஒரு அந்த மெமரி வந்து சந்தோஷம் கொடுக்குது. ஓகே, no one can discard in that, right? So he says that I owe to them in the I am indebted to these scenes, okay, because when I was absent for these 5 years, I was in city, right, in the hurry-burry of city life, din of towns and cities. Yeah, I felt the sensation sweet in blood and along my heart, and passing into even my purer mind with a tranquil restoration. He says that it has passed into my, what we call, it is restored my peace, inner peace, okay, into my purer mind, into my deeper mind, and the all tensions, emotions, the anxiety, fear, suffering, adellati calm pannichu. It has given me peace of mind. Okay, what we can see is that, okay, when he says the tranquil restoration, restoring one's peace of mind, feeling too of unremembered pleasure, such perhaps as I have no sight or trivial. Okay, he says that these impressions, created by these, beautiful memories of poet, it has influenced the poet so much. Yeah, got it? He says that even when he's not conscious, right, feeling too of unremembered pleasure, such perhaps as I have no sight or trivial influence. He says that these emotions, were not ordinary. Okay, trivial or sight means very ordinary or silly. Got it? And he says that tranquil restoration, feeling too of unremembered pleasure, even the pleasures which is not able to remember. Okay, small, silly, and ordinary pleasures. Yeah, adu koda, right? Restoration kudukradhukku chance irukku. Feeling too of unremembered pleasures, such as perhaps have no sight or trivial influence on the best portion of good man's life. Okay, is little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness and of love. He says that this has, in the scenery and these impressions of these things influence the poet so much that poet has become, he has started showing his love and affection, kindness, right, in day-to-day, in ordinary day-to-day life. Okay, even day-to-day life, nameless and unremembered, which we all usually forget. Okay, we don't remember, we ignore, right? In this way, nature has an elevating effect on human being, right? He says that in the emotions, in the emotions, in a deeper level, it has made a poet very kind. Okay, it has made him a kind and gentle man who is able to show his love and affection to ordinary people, yeah, by helping them, right? Nor less I trust to them I may have own another gift, right? He says that these are not the only gift I received from nature, right? I have received some more gift, okay, more loftier, of aspect more sublime. Of sublime means noble, okay, excellent, great, okay, right, of greater level, okay, noble and the mari, okay, whatever the traditional definition of noble na neenga yochidunga. So yeah, so it says that this is not the only gift, right, the preceding one, right, nameless, unremembered, or small act of kindness and love, idu mattum illa, it is not lesser. I trust to them refers to the landscape, okay, the beautiful landscape. I may have owed another gift of some more sublime, some more, deeper, some more, elevated and noble, right? The blessed mood in which the burden of the mystery, right? He says that some more sublime, some more elevated, some more loftier gift also I have got, right? That is the happy and the spiritual temper of my mind. Okay, that is the spiritual happiness which has nature has given me, right? Got it? Okay, and which has made me to understand the burden of the mystery, right? Referring to, he says that the mystery of this universe, okay, of this mystery of this universe which is unintelligible, right? We cannot understand this mystery, yeah, of this universe, and is this is a kind of a burden, yeah. This nature has given me, to understand this in a deeper level, which is ordinary மக்கள் வந்து புரிஞ்சுக்கலாத இந்த physical nature பத்தி, right? Nature இன்னைக்கு கூட நம்ம புரிய முடியல, சரியா? ரைட், அன்னைக்கு வந்து பேசிக்ஸ் கூட புரிஞ்சிருக்காது, ஓகே, 200 இயர்ஸ் வந்து பேசிக்ஸ் கூட புரியாது. இன்னைக்கு நம்மளுக்கு உலகத்துல என்ன நடக்குது, சீசன் எப்படி நடக்குது, எர்த்தோட பேசிக்ஸ், டிஃப்ரெண்ட் கிளைமேட், நேச்சர் எப்படி பிஹேவ் பண்ணுது, எப்படி மழை வருது, இதெல்லாமே நம்மளுக்கு புரிஞ்சிருச்சு. பட் பியாண்ட் தட், ஓகே, பியாண்ட் சன் அண்ட் மூன், யூனிவர்ஸ்ல நடக்கிறது, சோ மெனி கேலக்சிஸ், அது இன்னைக்கு தெரியல. ஓகே, லாஸ்ட் 200 இயர்ஸ்ல சயின்ஸ் அண்ட் டெக்னாலஜி இதை புரிய வச்சிருச்சு. அந்த டைம்ல அது கூட புரியாது, சரியா? எர்த்குவிக் எப்படி வருது, வால்கனோஸ் எப்படி நடக்குது, எதுக்கு மழை போகுது, ரைட்? அப்பெல்லாம் ரொம்ப ஒன்றும் ஆயிருக்காது, ஏன்னா மாடர்ன் சயின்ஸ் அண்ட் டெக்னாலஜி டெவலப்பே அந்த ரெனிசாக்கு அப்புறம் தான் நடந்துச்சு, ஓகே, நியூட்டனோட டைம்ல இருந்தான், சரியா? அப்ப அதனாலதான் நேச்சர் வந்து ஒரு டிவைனா பார்த்தாங்க. ஓகே, சூரியன் ஒரு கடவுள், நைட்னா ஒரு ஒரு கடவுள், மூன்னா ஒரு கடவுள், எர்த்குவிக் வந்தா ஒரு கடவுள், மழை வந்தா ஒரு கடவுள், இதெல்லாமே ஒரு காடா பேகன் டைம்ல எல்லாம் வர்ஷிப் பண்ணிருப்பாங்க, சரியா? So it says that in the unintelligible world, the world which cannot be understood, the mystery of the world, right? At least he is able to look at the deeper meaning there. Okay, so he says that at least the burden of this motive, burden means burden, okay, the weight, it has been reduced. In which the heavy, yeah, of the blessed mood, in which the burden of the mystery, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all unintelligible world, right? He says that this feeling of weariness which human beings feel, right? Okay, because of the lack of knowledge of understanding of this life, right? How much it affects them, yeah, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all this unintelligible world is lighted. He says that human beings usually they find it very difficult for them to, because of the pain and suffering, right? And their own understanding. Okay, we can understand heavy and weight, our maybe understanding it totally. Beyond that, the pain and suffering of this human being, right? Even referring to French Revolution and its impact, right? This weariness and heaviness, right? He says that people get that they are unable to understand, get the real knowledge of this meaning of this life or this world. Okay, is lighted in the serene and blessed mood in which the affections gently lead us on until the breath of the corporal fame and even the motion of our human blood, right? So he says that so in this way, it's impossible for us to understand. Of all the unintelligible world is lighted. Yeah, he says that when man tries to understand the depth or the emotion, this beautiful emotion and the feeling which Wordsworth felt, man would be able to feel somewhat relieved of this pain. Got it? This pain and suffering, this heaviness, this weariness. Yeah, that serene and blessed mood in which the affection gently lead us. Right? What is the affection? This is the he says that this calm atmosphere, okay, the enjoyment of nature, the passive enjoyment of nature. He says that in this way, human is able to understand this world, okay, understand this whole physical frame of this nature, okay, the serene and the blessed mood in which the affection gently lead us to until the breath of this corporal frame, of this physical frame of this whole body, and understand. And even the motion of our human blood is almost suspended, right? He says that even though human might feel that they are unable to understand, and they might feel that almost yeah, they have become unconscious for a while, okay, the blood has been suspended, right? And we are laid asleep in body and becoming a soul. He says that this close communion with the nature, this relationship with the nature, awakened poet's mind and led him to have a close communion with the nature, right? We are laid asleep in body and becoming a living soul. So in that sense, he says that, but he says that the close communion with the nature will make this spiritual sense, right? Almost become one union, got it? Almost will become like a living soul, right? While with an eye made quiet by the power of the harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things, right? He says that this mental eye, got it? This eye made quiet. He says that this calm mental vision which has been, nature has bestowed him, it makes human being harmony, right? Understanding the things, the inner harmony of all the things, right? Living and all the things. While with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things, right? He says that when man gets that, we realize, maybe the verse would perhaps alone, he realized that the inner harmony of all the things, the relationship between all the things, that is the ultimate spiritual vision of the ultimate reality of this universe, right? And we see the life of things, okay, the life of thing in that sense, he says, right? He says that overall we are able to see the oneness of man and the nature, right? An ultimate reality of the universe. In that sense, man is able to uh, see the harmony, the relationship, man, nature, and the divine. Got it? If in the idea of the man, nature, and divine, how man can become one with the divine through physical nature. Physical nature love பண்ணி அதோட ஹார்மனியோட வாழ்ந்து கடவுள்கிட்ட, ஓகே, கடவுள்னா the divine, okay, not physical, ஏதாச்சும் ஒரு specific கடவுள் நீங்க யோசிச்சிடக்கூடாது. The divine, the the super conscious, okay, man can become one with that. சரியா? இப்ப இந்த ஐடியாலாம் வேர்ட்ஸ்வொர்த்தோட ரொம்ப டெவலப் பண்ண மாட்டாங்க, ஓகே, ஒரு பேந்திசம் அந்த லெவல்ல போயிடுவாரு. டிரான்சென்டென்டலிஸ்ட் இருக்காங்கல்ல, எமர்சன், தோரு, அவங்க அடுத்த லெவல்ல இதை எக்ஸ்ப்ளோர் பண்ணுவாங்க. அடுத்த லெவல்ல டெவலப் பண்ணி they would go and explore also, right? We already know that தோரு எல்லாம் அதுக்கு மேல எக்ஸ்ப்ளோர் பண்ணி பர்టిక్యులர்லி போய் நேச்சரோட வாழ்ந்திருக்காரு, ஓகே, more than 2 years 2 months 2 days லிட்டரலி வால்டன் பவுண்ட்ல வாழ்ந்தது. ஐ திங்க் நீங்க படிச்சிருப்பீங்க ஆல்ரெடி, சரியா? அவங்க எல்லாம் அடுத்த லெவலுக்கு போயிருவாங்க. that man can become one with the universe, with the god. So ஒரு ட்ரையாங்கிள் மாதிரி, ரைட்? மேன் கடவுளை புரிஞ்சுக்கிறதுக்கு இந்த பிசிக்கல் நேச்சர் தான் கொடுத்திருக்கு. இதை இந்த ஹார்மனியை புரிஞ்சுட்டா man can become one, because he has to live in nature and become part of the nature, right? Not looking at animal and other kingdom nature or antagonist pakudadu, right? That's a different thing that they lived in a very, whether golden pound or lake district la nature oda destructive forces avangala paakala. Maybe nature oda destructive forces paarthunda avanga eppadi sollirpaanga namakku theriyadu. But inge அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கையில நேச்சரோட ஒரு வர்ஷிப் பண்ணி, நேச்சர் ஆல்வேஸ் நல்லதுதான் பண்ணும். அப்ப நேச்சர் நம்ம எப்படி நேச்சரை ரியலைஸ் பண்ணி க்ளோஸ் போயிட்டா அதை வச்சு நம்ம கடவுள்கிட்ட ஒன்னு ஆயிடலாம். ஏன்னா கடவுளோட மேனிஃபெஸ்டேஷன் இது எல்லாமே நேச்சர், அந்த பிசிக்கல் நேச்சர் கொடுத்ததுதான், சரியா? சோ திஸ் எர்த், இந்த எர்த்ல இருக்க the lands, trees, mountains, river, valleys, sun, moon, ரைட்? இதுதான் கண்ணுக்கு தெரியுது, கண்ணுக்கு தெரியாது நம்ம. அப்ப கான்சியஸ்னஸ் இப்ப இதுதான் தெரியுது. அப்ப இதெல்லாமே கடவுளோட மேனிஃபெஸ்டேஷன், ஓகே, the டிவைனோட மேனிஃபெஸ்டேஷன், ரைட்? சோ திஸ் harmony, if he realizes, what will happen? He will be able to become one, right? So this belief that that we can realize the inner harmony of all the things, okay, right? So this ultimate vision will help realizing the ultimate reality of this whole universe. Right? Man becomes a living soul, he becomes a complete. While with an eye made quiet by the power of harmony and the deep power of joy, we see into the life of things. If this but be vain belief, yet how often in darkness and amid the many shape of joyless daylight, when the fretful stuff unprofitable and fever of the world. Yeah. Now next because if this he says, yeah, he says that many of us, many of you might believe that this may not be possible. Yeah. So if this but a vain belief, he says that if this belief at nature as something, if you believe that it's a vain belief, it's just illusion or only imaginary, it is not reality. Yeah. How often in darkness and amid the many shape of joyless delight, when the fretful stir unprofitable and the fever of the world, right? He says that he was not able to see any, beautiful things. Yeah. Okay. In the cold days. Yeah. In the cold days of the winter. He says that, oh, yet, how often in darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, so Wordsworth, he says that the fret and suffering of the world was so much. Yeah, he says that the impact of that always impacts the human being and their love in their world. Okay, so whether the suffering, pain and suffering, right? Got it? Whatever it could be, fever or all the depression, right? Fret or the anxiety. Yeah, it prevails over the soul, right? It impacts the soul. It impacts one's cheerful day. Got it? So if this belief, the preceding line many of you, if you assume that it's an illusion, it's a vain belief. Okay, it cannot be reality. But then how often in darkness amid the many shape of joyless delight, when the fretful and unprofitable and the fever of the world, right? When the disturbance, fretful refers to, when the disturbance of city life, okay, disturbance, all the pains and suffering of city life, and these fever of the world, referring to, the feverish preoccupation of all the people, the war, right? How people are fighting over war, dishonesty, crookedness, right? Okay, right? How joyless delight when the fretful stuff, unprofitable, and the fever of the world have hung upon the beating of my heart, right? He says that these, emotions, what I got in city life, yeah, these emotions of fretful emotions, the disturbance of city life, this freebish occupation, freebish, emotions of anxiety, fear, crookedness, everything, whatever I got, it waited upon my heart. Okay, right? During the whole time, hung upon the beating of my heart. It weighted my heart down. Okay, in a way, I became so depressed and down with such thoughts, right? So, when the fretful and unprofitable and the fever of the world have hung upon the beating of my heart, how often in spirit have I turned to thee? He says that whenever I felt like that, right? Preceding line என்ன சொன்னாரு? ஒரு ஹார்மனியோட ஆயிட்டா man can become live in peace. அப்ப இவர் சொல்றாரு, whenever சிட்டில இந்த மாதிரி டிப்ரெஷன், இந்த மாதிரி பெயின்ல இருக்கையில, I always came back to you. I always thought of nature. சிட்டில இந்த மாதிரி டென்ஷன், anxiety, fear, suffering எல்லாமே யோசிச்சுக்கலாம். சரியா? மக்கள் கஷ்டப்பட்டது, fear, war போறது, egalitarian society நடக்காதது. ஓகே, got it? சரியா? அப்ப அந்த இது எக்ஸெப்ஷனல் போயிட். ஓகே, இஸ் an exceptional man. ஓகே, ஒரு ஹியூமனிட்டி யோசிக்கிறது, ரைட்? நான் எங்க ரிலேட்டிவ் ஒருத்தர் சொல்லலையா, ரைட்? ஓகே, அவர் ரொம்ப ஃபீல் பண்ணுவாரு. சரியா? there are people like that. ஓகே, those who really care for the country, ஒரு நாட்டை பத்தி யோசிக்கிறவங்க அந்த மாதிரி யோசிச்சாங்க, ரைட்? நம்ம பாதிக்கு மேல நம்ம வந்து கேரே பண்ண மாட்டோம், ரைட்? That's a different thing. Okay, because that's the way it is, right? I have met people, அவங்களுக்கு எதுவுமே they are not even ready to come to know. சரியா? இன்னைக்கு பெண்டமிக் நடக்குதோ, இது நடக்குதோ, டெத் நடக்குதோ, இதெல்லாம் அவங்க தெரிஞ்சுக்கிறதுக்கே ஆசைப்படுறாங்க. சரியா? I mean, I have literally met people like that. Okay, so அந்த மாதிரி இருக்காங்க. எதுக்கு நம்ம எல்லாம் தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டு, சரியா? அப்ப அந்த மாதிரி, right? So here, so he says that the preceding line என்ன சொன்னாரு? இதெல்லாம் imaginary இல்ல, right? He says that it's not a vain belief, it's not an illusion, right? Example, he says that during the city life ல இருக்கையில how I felt that, right? He says that when he was, how often he turned back, how often I have turned to thee, right? He says that, during this time, how often when I was down with this, I have how often turned to you, how often I thought of you. Sylvan wine. Sylvan wine refer to the river Wye, right? The river Wye, which is flowing through the woods, okay, woods and the hills, okay, nearby. He says that how often during this in city life, when I felt the fever, unprofitable, fretful stir, the pain and suffering and anxiety of the world, right? How often, I have turned to thee. Thou wander through the woods, I often has my spirit turned to thee. Right? Referring to the river Why he says that so many times, this river you are which are wandering through this. How often I turn to thee Naminana. How often I came to you for consolation and relief. Right? Got it? It's like saying that so many times city la tension arkela vaanga or beautiful site or nature la poirudhu poita nature vandu soothing power kudukra mari, right? He says that but not 5 years na anga irukela anakku kedaikala, but I had a memory, right? I had memory. நம்ம ஊர்ல இன்னைக்கு films இருக்கு, படம் இருக்கு, photograph இருக்கு, right? அன்னைக்கு அது கூட இல்ல. அப்ப என்ன சொல்ற, என்ன my mindல எல்லாமே இருக்கு images. So I thought of that, right? So whenever I had suffering, pain, problem, I thought of Tintern Abbey. 5 வருஷம் மிந்தி வந்தது ரிவர் வாயில இதை யோசிச்ச உடனே என்னோட சஃபரிங் பெயின் எல்லாம் கம்மி ஆயிடுச்சு, ரைட்? ஐ டர்ன் டு தி ஃபார் தி consolation, okay? I turn to thee for the turn to thee the river, right? For the consolation and relief. The Sylvan why thou wander through the woods, how often has my spirit turned to thee? How often? So many times I have turned to thee. I have thought of you, I have remembered you, right? And now, with the gleams of half-extinguished thought, with many recognition dim and faint, and somewhat of sad perplexity. Yeah. Now he says that now, the thought, he says that this is the previous, visit I had, right? The previous 5 years ago I visited. Yeah. And he says that now, those thoughts have been forgotten, right? And the gleams of half-extinguished thoughts, na? All those memory 5 years moda உள்ளது பாதிக்கு மேல, right? He says that almost he has forgotten, right? But now when he has come again, he has received them again. And now with the gleams of gleams na அது மறந்து போயாச்சு, சடன்லி இங்க வந்ததுக்கு அப்புறம் அதை ஞாபகம் பண்ணியாச்சு. இட் இஸ் லைக் நீங்க போறீங்க, ஒரே இடத்துக்கு போறீங்க, 10 வருஷத்துக்கு அப்புறம் போறீங்க, நான் சொன்ன மாதிரி நீங்க போறீங்க, யூ திங்க் ஆஃப் தட் அண்ட் யூ திங்க் ஆஃப் 5 years ago, right? Alright. அப்ப நான் அந்த இடத்துக்கு போனா, when I go to the island, I see that in the 20 years no changes நடந்துச்சு. அதே மாதிரி தான் கடல் waves அடிச்சிட்டு இருக்கு, அதே மாதிரி தான் இருக்கு, no changes, right? When you look at the pebbles, waves, right? Same way, everything. Got it? So in the same way he says that, and now with the gleams of half-extinguished thought, at least half of those thoughts I have forgotten. But when I come here, I have received, those thoughts have been revived again. With many cognition dim and faint. Yeah. And many of these memories, I have very distinct memory. Okay. Dim and faint. Very, very indistinct and vague memory I have. Right. And somewhat of sad perplexity. Right. Okay, and he says that he has a very sad perplexity, referring to, he says that his mind is filled with, sadness and perplexity. Okay, he says that he is sad, because, all his, the youthful thought which he had, okay, that is gone, right? Youth la irundhathu poiruchu, right? And he's perplexed also, okay? Yeah, he says that, maybe he's perplexed. He says that, he's not able to look at the nature in the same way. 5 years ago, right? 5 years ago I looked at nature, அது வேற மாதிரி தெரிஞ்சு, இன்னைக்கு வேற மாதிரி தெரியுது. Yeah, right? So that's why he's somewhat sad and perplexed, right? So a somewhat of sad perplexed, okay? Sadness because நான் முத இருந்த அந்த charmness இல்ல. Maybe முத beginning ல வரையில he might have spent their time in different way. Got it? So the question is how you perceive. You go to a seashore, right? Or lake போறீங்க, or mountain போறீங்க, or seashore போறீங்க, right? Got it? அப்ப how நம்மளோட attitude எப்படி இருக்கும்? ஒரு group போவாங்க, right? Physical sensationல எப்படி ஒரு சீல ஸ்விமிங் எல்லாம் பண்ணுவாங்க, இதெல்லாம் பண்ணுவாங்க, right? Got it? ஒரு group இருப்பாங்க பண்ணவே மாட்டாங்க. ஒரு group ஒரு மெச்சூர் ஆயிட்டு இருப்பாங்க, சரியா? அப்ப அந்த physical sensation இருக்குல்ல, அது ஒரு group வாழ்க்கை பூரா பண்ணிக்கிட்டே இருப்பாங்க. அவங்களுக்கு அந்த அனிமல் மூவ்மெண்ட்ல வாழ்க்கை முடிஞ்சிடும். 20 வயசுலயும் போய் கடல்ல போய் குளிப்பாங்க. குளிச்சாதான் அவங்களுக்கு அது அந்த வேவ்ஸ் வந்து அடிக்கிறது, அந்த மணல்ல விளையாடுறது. ஓகே, நீங்க பீச்ல குளிச்சிருந்தா தெரியும். ஓகே, ரைட். இல்லாட்டி நீங்க அந்த வாட்டர் ஃபால்ஸ்ல பண்ணீங்கன்னா தெரியும். அப்போ ஒரு குரூப் வந்து அதே தான் 20 வயசுலயும் 40 வயசுலயும் அதே தான் 60 சாவர வரைக்கும் அதே தான். அது இல்லாட்டி அது அந்த ஃபீலிங்கே வராது. ரைட். அப்ப அந்த வேர்ட்ஸ்வொர்த் சொல்றாரு ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டேஜ். சரியா? நம்ம பார்க்கலாம். Later we will discuss what is exactly the first stage he talks about. Right? He says that somewhat is doubtful. Yeah, because he feels that he's somewhat missing that. The picture of the mind revives again. Yeah. While I heard, I stand not only with the sense of present pleasure, but with the pleasing thought that this moment there in life and food for the future year. Right? So he says that the beautiful scene, he says that not only pleases him at this time, present time, please panla, it will please him even in future. Right? Okay, so he says that how Tintern Abbey or 5 years ago he was able to recollect in the 5 years. சரியா? Right? So in the same way he says that in the moment which he is spending now today, again he'll be recollecting it later years. Yeah, future la. இத ஒரு மெமரியில இருந்து என் மைண்ட்ல இருக்கும். சரியா? How the mind revives again. Yeah. Of somewhat sad perplexity, the picture of mind revives again. While here I stand, not only with the sense of present pleasure, but with the pleasing thoughts that in this moment there is life and food, right, for future years. And I dare to hope, though changed. Yeah, right. He says that I dare to hope that I will be remembering these moment for future also, right? Now 93 la vandadu 5 years I was able to think, and again I have come in 1798 again after 10 years, 20 years, 50 years I'll be remembering these. I hope, I dare to hope, though changed, though I have changed. Yeah, he says that my attitude towards nature has changed, right? After the first glances we get that Wordsworth attitude, right? Wordsworth வந்து just 23 இயர்ல அவருக்கு வேற attitude இருந்துச்சு, 28ல வந்துருச்சு, right? 27, 28, right? Got it? அவருக்கு 20, he was a visionary poet, right? Ordinary manக்கு வந்து நான் சொன்ன மாதிரி வாழ்க்கை பூரா வராது. சரியா? வாழ்க்கை பூரா உங்களுக்கு அந்த ஸ்டேஜ்லயே இருந்துருவாங்க, ரைட்? என்ன ஸ்டேஜ் நம்ம பார்க்கலாம், உங்க இண்டிவிஜுவல் எக்ஸாம்பிள்ல பார்க்கலாம், நீங்க நம்ம எப்படி பார்க்கணும். சரியா? So he says that though changed, he says that there's a change of his attitude towards nature. Yeah, right? And so I dare to hope, though changed, no doubt, from what I was when I first came to these hills. Yeah, he says that when I came to these hills first time, 1793, I was different. Yeah, now I have changed, right? Now I came to these hills when like a roe I bound over the mountain. Yeah. So the first example he gives, he says, I was like a roe, a small deer. I bounded over the mountain. He says that I ran about the mountain. Got it? He says that when I came first time here, like a small deer, I ran over this whole mountain. He was just sitting there. It's like saying that when you go to tourist spot, how physically, physical sensation குழந்தைங்க எல்லாம் பண்ணுவாங்க, குளிப்பாங்க, இதெல்லாம் பண்றது. Okay, just imagine, okay, ஒரு example of just ஒரு beach எடுத்துக்கங்க. சரியா? Right? The physical animal movement, right? அதுதான் சந்தோஷம். ரொம்ப பேருக்கு அதான் இருக்கும். அதான் நான் சொல்றேன்ல. சரியா? ரைட்? அப்ப அந்த ஸ்டேஜ் வந்து கிராஸ் பண்றாங்களா இல்லையா? ரைட்? சம் வந்து அதே ஸ்டேஜ்ல இருந்துருவாங்க. ரைட்? பட் ஐ ஹவ் சீன் பீப்பிள் அந்த ஸ்டேஜ்ல ரொம்ப பேர் கிராஸ் பண்ணிடுவாங்க. I have met people, okay, 20 வயசு 30 வயசுல எல்லாம் பீச்ல போய் குளிச்சவங்க 40 வயசு 50 வயசுல குளிக்காம அவங்களுக்கு சந்தோஷமா இருப்பாங்க. அவங்க சும்மா பார்ப்பாங்க. ரைட்? குளிக்கவே மாட்டாங்க. அந்த குளிச்சு அந்த மணல்ல படுறது, வேவ்ஸ் அடிக்கிறது, அதனாலதான் சந்தோஷம் இல்லைன்னு அவங்க எல்லாம் அடுத்த ஸ்டேஜ் போயிருவாங்க. அப்ப இது ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டேஜ் என்ன? லைக் எ ரோ, லைக் எ ஒரு ஸ்மால் டியர் மாதிரி I ran over, I bounded over the mountain, yeah, by the side of deep rivers and the lonely stream whenever nature led. He says that whenever nature led, I was just roaming there like a small deer. Got it? Okay, nearby the lonely stream or deep river, whenever nature led, whenever it looked like beautiful, I ran over. Just imagine like that, okay, right? So the first stage la the animal movement, kudikiradhu, jump pandrathu, enjoy pandrathu, right? Okay, yeah, whatever, mostly பண்ணுவாங்க பாருங்க, right? Got it? அதுவும் first time people இந்த மாதிரி hill side lake river waterfalls beach வரவங்க, right? We have observed that. Okay, அவங்களுக்கு வந்து the very sight கண்ணால அந்த பார்க்கறதே அதே பெருசு, right? Because suppose if you go to Kashmir, அப்ப the snow, அப்ப அந்த animal movement தான் first பண்ணுவாங்க. Okay, the physical movement, right? So the Wordsworth says that first stage, this is the way he did that. More like a man flying from something like that he dreads. He says that, yeah, he says that at the time, nature filled the poet with a feeling of fear. Okay, more like a flying from something that he dreads. Dreads means something fearful he does not want to do. Yeah, right? Whenever nature led, more like a man flying from something that he dreaded. Yeah, okay. So the almost more than the, more than any kind of a joy, more than the, that the dread and fear filled his mind. Than one who sought the thing he loved, right? Than one the person who, than unlike the person who thought, who got whatever he wanted, okay, whatever he loved. Yeah. For nature then, the kosher pleasures of my boys' days and their glad animal movement all gone. Right? He says that this is the way nature I lived. Right? The physical exercise, he says that, this is the way the kosher pleasure na உடம்புல physical sensation. Okay, உடம்புல touch பண்றது, குதிக்கிறது, jump பண்றது, swimming பண்றது, இது எல்லாமே மைண்ட் வச்சுங்க. He says that these kosher pleasures of my boys' days and then the glad animal moment, இது எல்லாமே animal moment மாதிரி. How animals behave, jump பண்றது எல்லாமே all gone, right? Right? Today he says that this moment, today I am not able to enjoy that. I am not able to conceive, I am not able to feel like that. Right? அதெல்லாம் போயிருச்சு. I hope it has gone. Right? At the first stage போயிருச்சு. To me, it was all in all, right? He says that all this physical moment, right? You can imagine, okay, swimming, roaming, jumping, right? What we do, different places are different people, okay, right? Whether they go to such, such places, yeah, all gone, and he says that all these have disappeared from his life, okay, as he has become matured, right? Okay, he was a poet, that's why 27 they mature writer, so yeah, right? All in all, right? To me, it was all in all. He says that to me, that was the everything, right? Those pleasures was everything at the time. Highest kind of pleasure at that stage, right? Got it? The physical sensation, right? You can just get how many of எவ்வளவு பேர் வந்து இப்ப நேச்சர் இந்த மாதிரி லேக் ரிவர் இந்த மாதிரி இடத்துல போயிட்டு ஸ்பிரிச்சுவல் ஆயிடுறாங்க, இல்ல ஒரு இமோஷனல் ஆயிடுறாங்க, இல்லாட்டி ஒரு டிவைனா பாக்குறாங்க, ரைட்? பார்க்கலாம், சரியா? மேபி ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டேஜ் வந்து எல்லாரும் பண்ணுவாங்க, செகண்ட் ஸ்டேஜ் ஒரு கொஞ்சம் பேர் பண்ற சான்ஸ் இருக்கு, ரைட்? தேர்ட் ஸ்டேஜ் சான்ஸே இல்லை. தேர்ட் ஸ்டேஜ் அன்லெஸ் வெரி வெரி கிரேட், ரைட்? இப்போ இருக்கலாம், உங்களே கூட இருக்கலாம், ஆல்ரெடி மேடம் இருக்காங்க, ரைட்? போயிட் மாதிரி யோசிக்கிறாங்க, ரைட்? இப்போ உங்களே இருக்கலாம் மக்கள். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் ஒரு பீச்சுக்கு போனா அங்க வேவ்ஸ் வர்றதை பார்த்து நீங்க மக்களோட கஷ்டத்தை பாருங்க, ஒரு 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 ஹோப் வந்து கிடைச்சு, ரைட்? வாழ்க்கையில நம்ம எவ்வளவு கஷ்டப்படுறோம், எவ்வளவு அது பண்றோம், இந்த வேவ்ஸையும் பாரு, ரைட்? மில்லியன்ஸ் ஆஃப் இயர்ஸ் அந்த வேவ்ஸ் நிக்கதே இல்லை, இது அடிச்சுக்கிட்டு தான் இருக்கு, எந்த ப்ராப்ளம் ஃபேஸ் பண்றது இல்லை. இந்த மாதிரி பார்த்து ஒரு இன்ஸ்பயர் ஆகி இந்த மாதிரி ஆறவங்களாம் இருக்காங்க, ரைட்? அப்ப அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு பிலசாபிக்கலி யோசிச்சு அதுல வந்து இது மனுஷனோட கஷ்டம் எப்படி இருக்கு, ஹியூமன் பீங்கோட பெயின் எப்படி இருக்கு, அதை கம்பேரிங் வித் த நேச்சர், அந்த மாதிரி எல்லாம் பண்ணீங்கன்னா யூ ஆர் போயட் தென். ஓகே, அப்போ வேர்ட்ஸ்வொர்த் லெவலுக்கு வந்துருவீங்க, பார்க்கலாம், சரியா? இப்போ வந்து ஃபர்ஸ்ட் ஸ்டேஜ், ரைட்? So he says that at this age, nature was all to him, all in all, all in all. This was the highest kind of nature to him. I cannot paint what I was then. Yeah, he says that I cannot describe how I was then, right? Okay, I cannot describe. The sounding cataract haunted me like a passion, right? The sounding cataract, he says that the sounding waterfall, right? The sound of waterfall, okay, haunted him like a passion, right? It says that, this waterfall haunted him, his emotion. It fascinated him. It impressed him so much. Yeah, got it? He says that how the sensuous, the nature, right? Look at the five senses of Wordsworth. How he says that how the sensuous nature of physical nature impressed him. Yeah, moved the poet. Yeah, So the second example, he says that the sounding cataract haunted me like a passion. Okay, sounding cataract refers to the waterfall. Okay, the waterfall when there's so many spirits, all sound, waterfall sound, right? So yeah, right. So says that it haunted him like a passion. It fascinated him. Okay, so he was so fond of us, the sound of the waterfall. Okay, that's the great sound of waterfall, and it fascinated. It was so passionate for him. Okay, the tall rock, the mountain, and the deep and the gloomy wood, their colors and their form were all then to me an appetite. Okay, third example, right? He says that, the tall rock, referring to the big rock, he says, the mountain, right? And the deep and gloomy wood, the deep and gloomy forest, their color and their forms were all meet to me an appetite, right? He says that I had a great liking, basically says that he was a great liking for such object of nature like rocks, mountains, woods, etc. Right? Okay. So he says that this describes, the sensuous nature of poet. Got it? How much he liked the nature. சரியா? Got it? அப்ப இதுக்கு அதுக்கும் ஃபர்ஸ்ட்க்கும் இதுக்கும் ஸ்லைட்டா டிஃபரன்ஸ் இருக்கு பாருங்க. ஃபர்ஸ்ட் என்ன சொல்றாரு? The physical sensation. குதிக்கிறது, ஜம்ப் பண்றது, ஸ்விம்மிங் பண்றது, இது பண்றது, அது பண்றது. செகண்ட்ல அவரோட 5 சென்சஸ்க்கு வந்துட்டாரு. கண்ணால பாக்குறது, மவுண்டனை பாக்குறது, பியூட்டிஃபுல் மவுண்டனை பாக்குறது, ராக்க பாக்குறது, வாட்டர் ஃபாலோட சவுண்ட கேக்குறது, ரைட்? The tall rock, the mountain, and the deep gloomy wood, their color and their form were then to me an appetite. Okay, it was an appetite. Appetite na pasi. Okay, அப்ப இங்கன்னா great liking for him. Okay, right? So this is the sensuous, the nature in which the poet loved it. A feeling and a love that had no need for remoter charm. Yeah, he says that such a charm it was that, right, that it is not possible for one to describe it. Okay, so it was such an experience that imagination, okay, one cannot describe it through physical appearance of beauty, right? A feeling and a love that had no need of a remoter charm, and by thought supplied nor any interest unborrowed from the eye. Yeah, he says that by thought supplied, not by any interest unborrowed from the eye. Yeah, he says that this idea cannot be conveyed to the mind through eyes. Okay, right? He says that this is the time of his the physical sensuous pleasure of his time. In this way he loved nature, right? By thought supplied, not any interest unborrowed from the eye. That time is past. So yeah, so that time is past. So the sensual nature ellame pass aayidhu. That time is past. That time is gone. So yeah, this is that's the way 5 years ago, right? I looked at nature, right? Got it? That time is past, and all its aching joys are no more. Yeah, all its aching joys are no more. He says that, look at paradox. Okay, right? Aching joys, right? Unbearable ecstasy, we can say, right? This unbearable ecstasy that is gone. Got it? He says that the pleasure was so accurate, unbearable ecstasy, aching joys, no meaning here, right? The pleasure was so accurate, acute, right? And its intensity was so much, right? Because it was causing pain to the poet. Okay, yeah, unbearable, right? It's a kind of a what we call oxymoron. So yeah, so all its aching joys are no more, right? Contradictory ideas. Okay, right? Aching joys, okay, paradox, okay, opposite. So yeah, one aching a painful, joy in a pleasure, right? So unbearable ecstasy and all its dizzy raptures. He says that everything is gone, all those delightful, intoxicating time of the youth, dizzy raptures, right? The which made poet feel dizzy, right? Everything is gone. Yeah, that time is past, right? And I don't feel that because I have become matured. Poet says that I have looked at nature. This is the way 5 years ago I enjoyed nature. Got it? ஆனா இன்னைக்கு நான் நேச்சரை வேற மாதிரி பார்க்கிறேன். சரியா? அப்ப எப்படி பார்க்கறாரு? அதான் கொஸ்டின். Not for this faint, not for murmur. He says, for this I don't complain. Right? He says that I don't pine for that. Okay, not for this faint not. I am not complaining. Oh, adhe gift எனக்கு திருப்பி கொடுத்துரு வந்துரு நேச்சரை நான் ஏன் அப்படி பார்க்க முடியல. I am not pining for that. Okay, faint I know. Faint நான் pine பண்றது திருப்பி அதே மாதிரி பார்க்கிறது. I am nor murmur nor mourning. Yeah, He says that Wordsworth, he says that he does not feel sorry for this loss of pleasure. Okay, right? And the money feel panlan, he don't feel any kind of a sorrow. Yeah, or he does not feel any sorrow or complain. Right? He does not murmur. He is not making other complain. Right? Other gifts have followed, but he says that nature has given me other gift today in the place of youthful pleasure. Right? Got it? The nature has given him other pleasures. Okay, right? Not those sensational pleasures. Okay, which is the physical aspect, physical one. He says other gifts have followed. Very very important and iconic lines. இதெல்லாம் ஞாபகம் வச்சுங்க. Right? எந்த phrase கூட கேட்டாலும் உங்களுக்கு when I say that important line உங்களுக்கு எடுத்த உடனே 5 லைன் 10 லைன்லாம் எல்லாம் கேட்க மாட்டாங்க. சரியா? ஈவன் ஒரு phrase கேட்டா கூட இப்போ இந்த phrase கேட்டா உங்களால நம்மளால தெரிய முடியாது. ரைட்டா? ஏன்னா it's a very detailed one. Of course, it's a very famous poem also. Okay, so நம்ம எல்லா லைன் நம்ம ஞாபகம் வச்சிருக்காங்க. Right? He says that for other gifts have followed for such a loss, I would believe abundant recompense. Right? So he says that in the place of all those useful pleasure, nature has given me other kind of pleasures. சரியா? And the physical pleasures எல்லாம் எடுத்துட்டு now in advanced years, nature has made him spiritual and intellectual. Right? So other greater pleasures have given to him. Okay, abundantly recompensate. Okay, compensate பண்ணிருக்கு nature. அதை எடுத்துட்டு வேற எதை கொடுத்திருக்காரு. Great levelல கொடுத்திருக்கு. Grand levelல கொடுத்திருக்கு. Right? Yeah. அன்னைக்கு physical pleasure, animal pleasures, இன்னைக்கு நான் அந்த மாதிரி நேச்சரை பார்க்க முடியல. ஆனா nature has compensated with me greater. இன்னைக்கு நேச்சர்னா இன்னும் வேற இன்னர் நோபலர் லெவல்ல பார்க்கிறேன். I would believe, right? First, that was a loss. Yeah, other gifts have followed for such loss. I would believe abundant recompense. For I have learned to look on nature not as in the hour of thoughtless youth. Okay, he says that the other gifts have followed, right? Okay, to compensate that aching joys and dizzy rapture. He says that, but I have able to see nature today in different way, right? Got it? For I have learned to look nature not as an hour. I don't look at nature like a thoughtless youth, right? Like a youth, when 23 years ago, when I 23 at the age of 23, when I was okay, I was not a serious, serious in thinking at that time. Okay, I was a thoughtless youth. I was not a very serious. It was just animal physical features kaga na vandande. Seriya? Right? But hearing oftentimes the sad music of humanity, right? Very iconic, most famous line of the poem, right? He says that today, when I look at nature, I see the sad music of humanity. Oftentimes I hear the sad music of humanity, right? He says that the sorrows and sufferings of the people, right? I am able to see in nature, right? I hear that, right? Got it? Okay, he says that when I was youthful, okay, I was not so conscious, right, of human suffering. Makkaloda suffering ella theriyadu, right? Got it? But now inniki grow aite, as I grew old, I am able to see all the sufferings of the humanity, and in this world, in physical world, in this nature also, I am able to see that. But oftentimes hearing the sad music of humanity, the pain and suffering of the people. He says that when I hear the sounds of this cataract in the sound, in the vision, in the nature, makkaloda kashtam, avangaloda pain and suffering, adu vandu maybe through the nature I am able to identify. Got it? As I told you know already, right? Got it? இப்போ நம்ம நீங்க போயிட்டு இப்போ ஒரு மெரினா பீச்சோ இந்த மாதிரி பீச்ல ஒரு வேவ்ஸை பார்த்து அப்படியே ஒரு philosophically ஆயிட்டீங்க, right? Or just imagine, right? You go and see that, right? You imagine like that, how many millions of people have suffered, right? Billions of yearsல இந்த மாதிரி கடல்ல இந்த மக்கள் சஃபர் பண்ணிட்டு போயிருப்பாங்க. But nature does not stop. Nature moves on, right? இந்த மாதிரி இதுல எவ்வளவு பேர் வந்திருப்பாங்க, ஹியூமனிட்டியோட கஷ்டம்லாம் பெயின், ரைட்? ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் லைக் டோவர் பீச்ல மேத்யூ வர்னால் யோசிக்கிற மாதிரி சிமிலர் ஐடியா. ஓகே, ரைட்? இதேதான் டிஎஸ் எலியட் சொல்லுவார்னோ ஞாபகம் வச்சிருக்கீங்களா? இதே ஐடியா தான். ட்ரெடிஷனோட எப்படி they are indebted, right? சேம் ஐடியாவை வேர்ட்ஸ்வொர்த் வேற லைன்ல சொல்றாரு. டிஎஸ் எலியட் டோவர் பீச்ல அதே ஐடியா நம்ம அதை படிக்கையில பார்க்கலாம், ரைட்? இதான் அவர் சொல்றாரு, how poet is connected with the past. சரியா? அப்ப இதெல்லாம் எக்ஸாம்பிள், right? Same idea of human suffering in the உலகத்துல suffering, pain and other. So he says that at that time I was a thoughtless youth, but today I oftentimes hear the sad music of humanity, right? And I am able to see the oneness in this, of this whole universe, the sad pain and suffering of humanity. No hearts are grating though of the ample power. Yeah. He says that neither very rough or irritating, yeah, to the ears, right? But I see a great spiritual power, right? Got it? I don't look at nature very harsh or grating today, but wait, a spiritual power to chasten and subdue, to for purify. What is this nature does? It purifies, okay, and it calms, okay, someone's disturbed mind. Yeah, I have felt a presence that disturbed me with the joy of elevated thought. Okay. Yeah, I have felt the presence. He says that I am able to see the presence of that, that universe, that, that oneness, right? That disturbed me with the joy of elevated thought. Yeah. He says that it gives me those grand thoughts, okay, elevated thoughts, sublime thought. Yeah. So I am able to see some divine power, right? I am able to see some divine power in nature today, right? Got it? Unlike the physical movement, sensuous movement, stage 1, stage 2 la adha na feel panne. Inniki I presence it, something divine, something spiritual. There's a soul in the nature, right? And this gives me some elevated feeling, noble feeling. Yeah, I have felt the presence that disturb me. Presence na, I feel a presence. Presence na, I feel a kind of a soul, some divine, some spiritual, okay, aspect in the nature, right? Which gives him the joy of elevated thought, nobler thoughts. Yeah, right? Or kind of a spirit, or kind of a divine or spirit pervading over this whole, nature, this physical nature, or Tintern Abbey on the goods lab, and alla paaka mudiyudhu. சரியா, ஒரு presence of ஒரு human being ஓட ஒரு divine soul மாதிரி, right? Right? Okay. So I have felt that presence of it that disturbed me with the joy of elevated thought, a sense sublime of something far more deeply infused. Right? He says that this sense of sublime, which is far more than physical presence, it has called divine presence. Right? Okay, something divine pervading over throughout the universe. Okay, some kind of a soul, kind of a divine presence in இன்னைக்கு பார்க்க முடியுது. Not just physical one, not just animal movement, not physical sensation enjoy பண்றது இல்ல. இன்னைக்கு நேச்சர்ல ஒரு divine characteristic, something ஒரு divine and spiritual என்னால பார்க்க முடியுது. Right? And where is that? The sense sublime of something far more deeper infused, whose dwelling is the light of a setting sun. Right? அப்ப என்ன பார்க்க முடியுது? I can find that divine presence in the sun, in the setting sun. Right? In the setting sun கூட அந்த divine presence, something, ஒரு something, ஒரு power or spiritual power என்னால பார்க்க முடியுது. Right? Okay, whose dwelling in the light of setting sun, and whose round ocean and living air. Who is there in the round ocean? Seriya? And the living air, and in the blue sky, and in the mind of man, right? Whose dwelling presence, it is in the same divine presence of the human being oda spirit irukla, adhe spirit da indha ellathilum irukku. Seriya? Almost the same spirit which pervades the universe pervades human being, right? அப்ப நம்மளுக்குள்ள இருக்க அந்த spirit தான் இந்த இது எல்லாத்துலயும் இருக்கு. They are not, dead or, without soul or object illa. They have a presence. Idil ellathilum, whether air, ocean, sun, or blue sky, right? The same spirit which covers, pervades all the object, right? Okay, right, which is there in human mind. Got it? The same soul, the divine soul, whose dwelling is light of setting sun, and around ocean and the living air, and the blue sky, and in the mind of man, a motion and a spirit that impels all thinking things. Yeah, he says that this is the motion, this is the spirit. Yeah, this spirit makes people think and do and control all the things, all thinking things, right? That is, all human beings who have a faculty of, thought, and, those who could think and do, right? It impels everyone, emotion and spirit that compel, that motivate, that walk through every human being, right? Who has got, emotions, who have got, all the faculties, right? All object of all thought, all rules through all things, right? He says that all the subjects of, the serious thinking, all moves through the all object, right? and this spirit pervades over every object. Okay, right? And that is, one able to see through one's senses, through eyes and ears. So there is a spirit which pervades over, and which is there in human being. அதுதான் எல்லாத்துலயும் இருக்கு. In this way I am able to see today the nature, right? So the stage 1 and stage 2 I would treat stage 3 like this, the way I'm able to do that. Okay,